passed me by while I stayed hidden inside. I had stopped going to school and stopped speaking, too. I spent my days reading or sleeping. I don't remember exactly how I passed the time, but I lived this way for a month. There was no plan. I was too young to understand plans. I can tell you only that the repetition of lived days had become suddenly and totally unbearable. The reiteration of routine, the forced relationships, the questions and the failure of adults to answer them. At the end of my month of silence, I knew that I would not return to school. To erase the morning, I had to stretch the night. I stayed awake until the early a.m. until just before sunrise, when I allowed myself to sleep. I slept for a few hours and woke at noon, and in this way, when I opened my eyes, I was immediately in the p.m. hours, the time most people think of as day, the efficient, practical, useful hours. The p.m. hours are the worldly hours, but when I was a teenager, the time between roughly 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. became my true day. I felt most awake at that time. The yard behind my house in Las Vegas and the desert beyond were more vivid than in the busy light of day. If you've seen the desert at night, then you know that this is true. The desert, so blinding under the sun, is, when lit up by stars and moon, easier to see. Stars lighted the yard behind my house, and I was lit by the television screen that flickered as long as the stars did. Between 10 o'clock and 6 o'clock, I kept myself in a state of sleeplessness, not to uncover the mystery of night's puzzles, but to find out what really happens in the liminal space that is the passage from night to day. I was nighttime's watcher. In the sprawling ranch house 10 minutes from the Las Vegas Strip that I had lived in all my life, with its wall-to-wall chocolate-brown carpet and long hallway, I finished my dinner and put my dishes in the sink. We were often together, my father and I, bounded by the walls of the house, but there was an uncrossable sea between us. My father was a mathematician. He would lie on the couch in the day, surrounded by papers, working out equations for many years after he'd left the university. Numbers seemed to be the only thing that calmed him. I remember us eating separately, though this had not always been the case. At 9 p.m., my father went to his bedroom. At 10 p.m., I sat in the fat tan recliner and turned the TV on. The television played continuously, at a low volume. It was the only light in the house. This room, the family room, had become by that time the emptiest room of all. I kept a stack of library books beside me on a wooden tray, along with a multi-volume encyclopedia containing illustrations of countries that no longer existed, my third edition of Roget's International Thesaurus, and a notebook. Because I was completing my diploma via correspondence courses that were mailed from the University of Lincoln, Nebraska, to my house, a good number of my daytime hours were spent in the libraries of Las Vegas, lingering especially in the sections where the heavy art books were kept. The company of this man-made beauty, stacked high and low around me, gave my young life a lofty, transported quality. In later years, this led to my wandering barely visited rooms in the museums of New York City, or around a city's lesser streets, or driving without purpose through American towns. For the next 8 hours, the television ran through its cycle of reruns and commercials. Most of the programs played at these hours were well past their due dates. Variety shows with performers I'd never heard of, and sitcoms with anachronistic jokes. Movies with flickering dust particles, and dancing and singing. Movies I should not have been watching, and many, many documentaries. Early AM television was a rest home for lost, rejected culture. I watched these shows intently. I watched the actors' facial gestures and learned bygone references. I learned the old songs and dances. I learned about long-standing resentments and wars. My mind in these hours was porous and calm. I was rarely interrupted. If I thought I heard my father from his room down the hall, I would mute the sound on the television.